Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our video. In this video, we are going to present our analysis on fictional short story Yolanda by Oscar Casares. Before we go to the first aspect, here are the members of Group 7. The first member is Salsabila Rahmah and Rahadian Ayu Puspa, and the last is Sermanda Novilia. And here are the aspects that we are going to present. The first is about the order, second is plot, the third is characters, the fourth is the settings, both the place and time, the fifth is narrative point of view, the sixth narrative structure, and the last is symbolism. About the author and the literature. Oscar Casares is an American writer and a professional director of creative writing courses at the University of Texas in Austin since 2004. He was born at Brownsville, Mexico in 1964. Back to 2004, his first story collections, Brownsville, was named as Notable Book of 2004 by the American Library Association. Besides, Abby Golan, his first novel was chosen for the 2009 Austin Myers Book Club. Because of those works, Oscar earned fellowship from the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Texas Institute of Letters, and the Copernicus Society of America. Yolanda is a fictional short story written by Oscar and published in 1998. No long after that, the story is accepted by a literary journal. He was offered a number of fellowships. University of Iowa is the one of fellowship he accepts. Many of his stories are reflecting to life in border town with cross culture of US and Mexico. The second aspect is the plot of Yolanda. Every time the narrator can sleep, he always recalls his mind of Yolanda Castro, his childhood neighbor. The narrator was only 12 years old when Yolanda Castro and her husband, Frank Castro, moved next to the narrator's house. The problem starts when the mother of the narrator helps Yolanda to get a job at where the mother works. Frank actually does not want his wife to work. The narrator also understands Frank's attitude on rejecting Yolanda to work. It is because Yolanda is beautiful that the narrator very admires Yolanda. Almost every night that summer, the narrator can hear Frank and Yolanda arguing as his window and their rooms are near. One night, the narrator hears Frank loudly and clearly is suspecting of Yolanda cheating on him at work. After that, the narrator hears Yolanda scream. The narrator then looks through the window that Frank is chasing after Yolanda and falling to the ground. Yolanda ignores Frank and tapping on the narrator's window. After Yolanda climbs into the narrator's bedroom, Yolanda stays on the bed with the narrator all night. The morning comes, and Yolanda turns out taking money out of the cash register from where she works and will be caught because of that. In addition, Yolanda also leaves Frank and having an affair with a man who works at a shampoo company. In the end, the narrator gives details on how impressed he is on the night when he and Yolanda stay all night together on his bed. The next will be presented by Sermanda.
Okay, thank you, Eve, for the clear explanation about the author and the literature, also about the plot of the story. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Sermanda Novilia, and the next element is the character of the story. So I will present our group analysis of this element. In this story, there are three characters that are most highlighted and influential. These are the narrator, Yolanda Castro, and Frank Castro. The first is the narrator, which is the main or major character. Therefore, he can also be called the protagonist because he plays a very important role in the storyline. He is also to be said a man with no name because the narrator never mentioned his name until the end of the story. In addition, he is a 36 years old man who reflects on his childhood experience when he's still 12 years old. It is known because he mentioned that he was only 12 years old when Frank and Yolanda Castro moved into the beach house with grand dreams. After that, another the main character of the central character is Yolanda, as Frank Young left, that the age couldn't have been more than 30. She is also the main character because Yolanda is a character who is often told and appear frequently. From the title alone, you already know that Yolanda is also the main character who focuses the story on her. She is also suspected of being a Spanish because every time she fights with Frank, the narrator says that she speaks Spanish, so that she can be said as Spanish with physical traits of having long black hair, light brown skin, and green eyes, and the trait of her personality are patient, helpful, and caring. But on the other hand, she is also a liar or dishonest. And the next character is Frank as a minor character. He can be said to be a minor character because he is not the focus of the story, but they are often important to the story development. In addition, he is also an antagonist because he is in some kind of conflict with the main characters. He is the older man in his 50s when the narrator recounts memories of his childhood by that point, and he also the husband of Yolanda. Just like Yolanda, Frank also often uses Spanish when he and Yolanda fight, so he is also suspected of being Spanish. Physically, Frank looks squatty, short man with thick eyebrows, with big forearms, and black and gray hair mixed in. Meanwhile, in personality, Frank is a rude, controlling, and possessive husband. Next slide. Now we move to the setting of the story. In the setting of the place, the story is dominated by the selection of the scene in Brownsville, which is one of the cities in Texas. There are many scenes that indicate that the scene was taken in Brownsville. For example, when the narrator says, when you could sit at the Brownsville coffee shop, and before the cops ever had to show up at El Disco de Ora Tortilleria, and etc. Meanwhile, in the setting of time, the story is controlled by the memory of the narrator's childhood, which takes place during the summer more than 20 years ago. This can be proven because the narrator says clearly that he's talking about more than 20 years ago now. It can also be seen that the narrator age is 36 years old, while when Frank and Yolanda moved next door to his house, he said that he was 12 years old at the time. It also notes that the story of his childhood happened during the summer because he mentioned it many times. For example, there are some parts of the story where the narrator clearly mentioned that it happened in the summer, such as she was a woman who lived next door to us one summer. I called her almost everything Frank yelled that summer. That night, like a lot of night that summer. And then it was the 4th of July when I got sick that summer. And then the next is the setting of the atmosphere, which is in the story, it also dominated by tense atmosphere. This is because the frequent fight between Yolanda and Frank that dominate the story and cause the tense atmosphere often to occur. For example, when in one of their fight, the narrator explained that something shattered against the wall, and then a few seconds later, Yolanda screamed. So I think that's all from the character and setting of the story. For the next slide, will be presented by Rahadian Amin.
All right, thank you for the time, Sermanda Novilia. So in this occasion, I will talk about narrative point of view, narrative structure, and the last is about symbolism. So the first one is narrative point of view. In this story has two narrative point of view. The first one is first person point of view. At the beginning of the story, the narrator tells about himself by using the pronoun I, so that we think that it is first person point of view. The second point of view, it is third person omniscient point of view. The narrator tells his past about Yolanda and Frank using the pronoun she and he. And the narrator also knows everything about story life of Yolanda. So we think that it is third person omniscient point of view. Next to the narrative structure, we think that this story non-linear narrative structure because the sequence of events in this story is not sequential. So, in the first paragraph, the narrator tells about himself and Maggie, his wife, as the framing story. In the next paragraph, narrator tells about his new neighbors. It is Frank and Yolanda. At the time, the narrator was only 12 years old. Like in the sentence, I was only 12 years old, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the narrator told the part of flashback when he was 36 years old. We can see in the sentence, I've lived 36 years on this earth and never shaken hands with a beer, blah, blah, blah. So that's all about narrative structure. Let's move to the symbolism. The first symbolism is it is strawberry. In the sentence, the strawberry was my favorite. The strawberry is often symbolized by sexuality and femininity. Strawberry aroma itself can increase sexual arousal and desire. So that's the reason why the narrator prefers Yolanda's strawberry scented hair, because he will feel different things and be attracted to Yolanda. The second symbolism, it is tiny rose. In the sentence, blah, 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 where the girls had a tiny rose at the top of their panties. The meaning of this sentence is the bikini-clad girl in the sales catalog. In this sentence, tiny rose symbolism of sexiness. The next symbolism, it is license. In the dialogue, Frank said that, what do you want with a license? So we think that if Yolanda has its own license, it will make her easier to drive anywhere and can be free from Frank's control. License here symbolizes of independence or freedom. So that's why with a license that describes the freedom that Yolanda hasn't had before, and she really wanted to get that freedom. So that's all about symbolism. Back to the moderator. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sermanda and Rahadian. And that's all from Group 7. If you have any questions, please let us know on Sibejar discussion section. See you there and thank you for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.